What is going on, guys? Aiden here from Loshgust TV, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about our 25 in our top 100 HHN haunted houses. You got that right. Horror Nights also starts tomorrow, so as of tomorrow there will be 110 houses that I've been through, so my rankings will most likely change. Do not fear, I'll tell you guys more or less where those end up landing on this list, or maybe we'll do this again next year. Who knows? I don't. But nonetheless, I'm excited to get into this. I want to know what your top 10 is before I dive into this list, so let me know down below what your top 10 Horror Nights houses are. If you haven't been through 10, tell me your top 3. With all that being said, let's get straight into this with my number 25. At number 25, we have a house that's kooky, fun, and just amazing. From 2019, we have Killer Klowns from Outer Space. When I tell you that this house was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had in a haunted house, I wouldn't be lying. From the excitement of the scare zone that was there the year prior, to the actual house, hearing the song, seeing the characters. Now, granted, this wasn't the Shrek queue, so it was kind of tight and confined. However, I feel like they did an amazing job transporting us to the Killer Clown spaceship and then letting us see everything up there. The smell of cotton candy, the smell of popcorn. This entire house was a banger from start to finish. It was perfect. I loved it so much. Coming in at number 24, we technically have a house that was featured twice at HHN. It was so nice they did it twice. Not exactly, but we had Universal Monsters, The Bride of Frankenstein Lives. It was at HHN Light, and then it was at HHN 30. However, don't let that take away from the fact that this house was glorious. Like, the facade itself was beautiful, seeing the fallen rubble and then Frankenstein's monster laying down with a pillar over him, and then the bride trying to lift it up. Chef's kiss. This entire house from start to finish, granted it was held back by plexiglass, I still think this house was perfect. This is a house that I wish I could see again in modern day HHN, just because, well, we didn't get to experience every single aspect of it, but I would love for us to see exactly how they wanted this house executed, originally planned for the original 30 before things happened in the world. Now let's skip on back to HHN 31, and we have the Weeknd After Hours Nightmare. When I tell you, going into this house originally, I was completely expecting this house to just be okay. I was really excited for it because I'm a huge fan of the Weeknd myself, but as an HHN fan, I was worried. But I went to this house and I was pleasantly surprised, and I was so happy that this house was so good. From the music, to the set design, to the characters, everything about this house felt amazing. It felt like it was supposed to be at HHN. It looked like it meant to be there. And now, every day I can't listen to The Weeknd without thinking of Halloween Horror Nights. So he's on my hype list every year. But nonetheless, I did love this house, and I do wish they did more music-based houses in the future. Kind of give us like a Metallica house. Give us Lady Gaga. Give us some things like that. Some things that really push the boundaries. For example, this year we have the Wyatt Six. That's not really something that you'd expect to see at HHN because it's wrestling. I want to see more houses that push the boundaries. More stuff that you think to yourself, oh, this cannot be a haunted house. Kind of like The Exorcist. Didn't think it'd be a haunted house, and look at how phenomenal it was. Things that push the envelope. That's what I want to see at HHN. That's why I'm so excited for the Wyatt Six as well. Now moving to my number 22, we have Dead Man's Pier, Winter's Wake. This is, hands down, the most beautiful, or one of the most beautiful Halloween Horror Nights houses I have ever seen. It wasn't really scary. It was more of a scenic house that had a somber tone over it, and truthfully, this was amazing. It was an extension to the scare zone that they had back in 2016 with Dead Man's Wharf, but this house alone was truly unforgettable. Honestly, something that I wish we would see again, and with next year being an anniversary year, we can potentially see scenes from this house, especially since it's so talked about still to this day, years after it was here. So I can see this being something that's featured in that anniversary house, I hope, or it just comes back in a new way. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. We now move to my number 21, and in here we have a house from HHN 28 with Seeds of Extinction. This house, when I tell you, this house gave me a new lease on life when it comes to looking at original houses, I mean it. I was not excited for this house whatsoever, if I'm being 100% honest with you guys. It's one of those houses that I was like, meh, whatever, I guess. I think it'll be fun. But then I went through it, and I thought, wow, this house is perfect. This house is amazing. Truthfully, was no longer worried about houses. And I will say this. Quick story time with Loshgust TV. I lost my glasses in this house. If you don't know what I mean. Okay, so I wear glasses. This was Lexi's first year going to Horror Nights. So me and her are walking through the house. I'm in front of her. She's behind me. She's holding both of my hands because she's scared. It's her first HHN ever. So we're walking through, and there's a scene, there's a lot of roots that are coming down. It's opening night. A lot of roots that are coming down and everything. One of the roots are caught on my, like, not on around my neck, but on my neck. So I move it so that I can, like, I was like, get off my hands for a second, please. I move the thing off my face, like off my neck, and it takes my glasses and just yeets them across a haunted house. At this time, I did not know what to do, but it's the most scared I've ever been in a haunted house because I literally could not see. A few seconds go by, Alexia brings out her phone, uses her flashlight. I was like, don't do that, no! And then she was like, we need to find your glasses. And I'm like, okay, fine. We found them, but truthfully, I've never been more scared in my life than those 3 seconds that I lost my glasses. But hey, that's an unforgettable memory. I enjoyed it, and this house is truly terrifying. From the setting, to the climate, to the eeriness of it just being silent at times, it was terrifying. Now let's creep into this top 20. Here at number 20, we have Universal Monsters Legends Collide. If you don't know which one this was, it was a house that featured the Mummy, the Wolfman, and Dracula, all fighting for the power of the Amulet of Ra. The setting for this house was Egypt, because they were fighting for the Amulet of Ra in Egypt. So the breakdown was a little wonky for this house, so it was like 90% Mummy, 7% Wolfman, 3% Dracula. But hey, nonetheless, it made for some amazing scares. There were mirror effects here for scares. The best scare in this house, and I think it's what everyone talked about coming out of this house, was the triple scare. So there was a mummy on your left, Wolfman on the right, and then ahead of you was a bungee scare Dracula. Yes, you heard that correctly. A bungee that swings completely forward towards you and then goes away. If you got to experience this scare, it was truly one of the best scares ever. Getting all of that at once was cool. And then at the end of the house, seeing who won was honestly a nice little touch as well. Being able to see who was the one that took the Amulet of Ra. Was it Dracula? Was it the Wolfman? Was it the Mummy? You never knew until you got to the end, and the way you would find out is because 9 times out of 10, that character will be holding the head of another character to let you know that, hey, I beat them, I won, this is my Amulet of Ra now. And now we move into my number 19, and we have a house from last year in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Now this house, I will tell you, this was my favorite house at HHN 33. It had all the things that I love about haunted houses. You had great set designs, you had great character designs, and this truly followed the movie to a T. It was one of those things where I enjoyed the haunted house a lot more than the movie, but I will say it felt nice to go through and feel nostalgic hearing the Ghostbusters theme song, seeing Garaka, seeing Slimer, seeing all the Ghostbusters. With the amount of times that I went through this house, we were getting interactions with characters that you don't typically get. So for example, Vigo. If you don't know who Vigo is, this is Vigo. He would do a little power pose every time we walked by, or anytime anyone walked by. It was his scare trigger. But whenever we walked by, we would do it with him. So we would go from the ground up, pulling that power up. It was amazing. It was such a fun time. And truthfully, seeing the mini puffs, seeing everything about this house was truly perfect to me, and I'll never forget it. It always makes me wish that the Ghostbusters were still in the park, because if I could just spend time with the Ghostbusters, I'd be happy. I love the Ghostbusters. It's a great time, it's a great experience. This house, I'll never forget it. It's my most ran Horror Nights house. I went through it 200 times. So yeah, I kind of like this house. Now, moving to number 18, we have American Horror Story from HHN 26. Let me tell you, this was our first time ever seeing American Horror Story at Horror Nights, and truthfully, it was a match made in heaven for the event. As American Horror Story, to me, ever since I watched the first season, Murder House, I knew this belonged at Halloween Horror Nights. It felt like it belonged at Halloween Horror Nights. And then walking into this house for the first time, seeing the murder house, that's the very first thing you saw when you walked into this house, which then led to scenes from the murder house. And then the next section was all for Freak Show, which I thought was amazing to see because that's my favorite season of American Horror Story. Seeing Twisty the Clown, seeing all the different quote-unquote freaks, and truthfully just being able to experience one of my favorite things I've ever watched on TV in person was so great. And then we ended the house with Hotel, which was weird because we had the drill dough. I'm not putting that on the screen. Look it up if you want to see it. There was a drill dough in there. And this is honestly the only Horror Nights house that I've ever experienced that you hear a Drake song. That's a true fact. There's a Drake song that plays in this house. I'm not going to tell you which one it is. Just look it up. Now to number 17, we have Graveyard Games from HHN 29. This house was scary. When I tell you scary, I mean scary. When you think of a graveyard haunted house, this should be the house you think of. It is truly next level. Having the scene, I think it was with Mother, yes, the Mother scene, where all the candles blow out. There was no scare actor in this room, but all those candles blew out at the same time. Terrifying. Truly made me feel otherworldly. There's just so many set designs in this house that made me feel like this is too scary for me. There was a dark hallway, which to me was like the highlight of this house. A dark curtain hallway that you walk by. There's no scare actors, but there's audio triggers of kids talking. Terrifying. One of the scariest things I've ever experienced. And to my knowledge, they haven't done it again to that level since then. Yeah, I don't remember them doing that again. That's the only time I've experienced that and actually been scared. Nonetheless, I do think that this house is fantastic. It's great. I wish we would get something like this again. Maybe next year we see glimpses of it. I see a lot of the originals in general being nodded to this next year, but who knows? We still have this year to worry about. 10 more houses that we have to add to this list and to add to our all-times. So I'm excited for all of that. Let's move to our number 16, which to me had one of the most beautiful facades that is outside. We have Wicked Growth Realm of the Pumpkin. This is where we met our Gordon savior, Lil Boo. And honestly, it wasn't even designed that way. So this house wasn't a house dedicated to Lil Boo, but he was on that front facade. And on team member preview, he was given to the world, and a team member by the name of Connor snapped a picture of the cute little pumpkin, put him online, and said, hey guys, let's start claiming our pumpkins, and Halloween Horror Nights called him Lil Boo, meaning that he was an icon already in the making. But that's enough about that. Let's get into the house itself. This house felt like a combination of so many things. This felt like a more modern version of Scarecrow blended with that Halloween feel. So what do I mean by this? It was loud, it was scary, the scares were unique, they were fun, the smells of fall were all there. It was such a good house. It felt like everything was there, and we were introduced to a brand new character. We were introduced to the Pumpkin Lord, essentially an HHN icon now. He was at the end of the house, laughing, farting, and just having a great time. If you think I'm joking, watch a walkthrough. That's exactly what he was doing. But nonetheless, this house was truly peak, and I will never forget it because it was such a good house. We now move to my number 15, and this was actually Lexi's first ever haunted house, our first house together. Truthfully, I love this house. It is Scary Tales, Deadly Ever After. This house alone, let me tell you, blew me away. I'm a sucker for houses that are based off of movies without being based off of a movie. This was based off of The Wizard of Oz. And walking into this house, turning the corner, and looking at the facade, seeing the Wicked Witch up there, and then seeing her fly over you was crazy. This is stuff that you don't see at Horror Nights anymore. You don't really see people flying over you. I miss it. I miss the bungees that were flying over you, or the ones that came across the top. It was cool. I wish this would come back. It's scares that I really loved at HHN. And that alone, blended with the entire house telling the story of the Wizard of Oz in a weird, twisted, demented way, was the most perfect thing I could have ever experienced. As a fan of both The Wizard of Oz and Halloween Horror Nights, this house to me was a match made in heaven. From the scares to the sets to seeing everything in here was perfection. And honestly, I wish to see another Scary Tales house in the near future, as Scary Tales truly creates some amazing things. One of my favorite scare zones, Scream Punk, was from Scary Tales. Essentially, Asylum in Wonderland is a spin-off of the Scary Tales. Why not bring it back with new stories? Don't do an entire chapter. Do individual stories like you did this with The Wizard of Oz. Maybe something with Pinocchio. You've done that before. Maybe Peter Pan. Things like that. I think people would love it. Truthfully, they would eat it up. Bring Scary Tales back. Give us this opportunity, especially for next year with the anniversary. Let's now move to my number 14, and here we have a house from HHN 30, Case Files Unearthed. Now, if you guys didn't know this, Case Files was not the original house that was supposed to be here. It was something else. Might talk about that in a video during Loshtoberfest, but we'll see. But Case Files was truly an amazing house, and it kind of made me happy that we got this. It felt like Slaughter Cinema, but based on the different cases that were handled by Boris Schuster. And that was honestly amazing to see. Seeing the different settings, seeing everything here, knowing that this house technically took place in New York, which is the New York that we see at Universal Studios Florida, is kind of a connective tissue between Halloween Horror Nights and the real park. So having those two things go together made me feel like there's some kind of realism to the event itself, making us get more knowledge on the lore of the event, which is an amazing thing because I feel like it's hard to find lore bits nowadays. But I will say this, no matter what happened at this house, it still left everyone itching for the Legendary Truth to come back or for Boris Schuster to come back. Now the Legendary Truth has returned, they're at Horror Unleashed. Now we're just awaiting the return of the Hatted Fellow in Boris Schuster. Let us now move to number 13, and we have Scarecrow the Reaping, a Horror Nights house that has now been seen in Hollywood and Horror Unleashed, multiple places. But I will say this original version of the house truly was a phenomenon. People loved it, people ate it up. The facade was so nice. It was an old barn house with a scarecrow out front with corn. People hated the corn because we got hit with a hurricane directly after. But nonetheless, going into this house felt otherworldly for the fact that, yes, we were just walking through a barn and we were just walking through the Dust Bowl, like after the Dust Bowl has passed. But seeing this house and going through it, people are still telling tales of that original house. I still talk about this house. I compare it to almost any house that I go through and I think is scary. I get out of it and I think, was that like Scarecrow? When I say no, I say, all right, cool, it wasn't as great. But the most iconic thing to me in this house, it's something that I don't really think is talked about a lot. There's a scene towards the end where you hear a loud stomping, like a boom, 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 boom. And then there's a scare that comes out at the end, and it's a scarecrow that's almost on stilts. Terrifying. Definitely one of the scariest things. It's just, this house brought together so many elements that you found in some of your scariest houses and put them in one place. Touched on all your fears. It was great. And this is another one of those that I think should come back someday to Orlando. Yes, we got a sequel, Scare Zone, but I would love to see this come back as a house again in some way, shape, or form, or even if it's just featured in a house. Now let's move to number 12, and at number 12 we have The Horrors of Blumhouse from HHN 27. This one featured Insidious, Sinister, and The Purge. As a massive fan of all three of these movies, and knowing that I enjoyed The Purge house in 2015, I also enjoyed Insidious in 2015, the only key left in the domino to see if I liked it or not was Sinister is there. And when I went through it, starting off with Sinister, it bangs. And then it went on to The Purge, very tiny section, wasn't supposed to be The Purge, fun fact. And then we go on to the final scene, which was Insidious, this house tying all three of those together in such a phenomenal way, which is something I think came from the way they did American Horror Story. So they broke American Horror Story into 3 different seasons. They did the same thing here, breaking it into 3 different films. And I think it led to multiple things, like it led to the Slaughter Cinemas and things like that. But this Blumhouse house was so good. It truly baffles me at the fact that we have not seen Sinister at the event ever since that Horrors of Blumhouse. Because Sinister, I feel like, was treated so well. However, it only got 1 room and a hallway. I think those 2 sections were perfection. And Sinister being considered one of the scariest films of all time, I don't see why you don't bring this back and do it on its own. But nonetheless, I do think this house was perfection. It was great. I loved every aspect of it. The only complaint I ever have about it is how short The Purge was. But nonetheless, let's move to my number 11, which is Slaughter Cinema from HHN 28. Slaughter Cinema felt like a brand new rush of fear to me, in the form of seeing multiple properties in one house with all of them being original. It made me want to see more versions of this house. Made me want to see what else the creative team can only think of a room or two for, rather than an entire haunted house, or them testing things out for us to see in a single room like they're doing this year. With Slaughter Cinema 2, originally they did Hatchet and Chains, and then they brought a full-on Hatchet and Chains house for this year's event. Can't wait to see how that's executed. But honestly, the first Slaughter Cinema house was so iconic. It had so many scenes from so many different random things. We had the Beast Baby, we had Sorority Sacrifice, we had the Yeti, we had Midnight Snack 2, the house swarming. We had so many things that were just amazing. The Yeti, it was just such a good house. Seeing all of these together, and if I forgot something, I know I did because there's 10 movies in there, probably more or less, I can't remember. But seeing all of those together, knowing that it's different genres that we're walking through, like I said with the Horrors of Blumhouse, these houses are truly modeled from that. But knowing that it's multiple things, it's not just 3 movies or 4 movies or 3 seasons, 2 seasons. This is a house that shows you different movies scene by scene, similar to the Silver Scream houses. I never did those, but that's what I'm expecting that they were like. Nonetheless, I think that this Slaughter Cinema house led to a world of us getting good houses like Case Files, like Slaughter Cinema 2. Without Slaughter Cinema, we wouldn't have had some of the best houses we've had. You get what I'm saying? Without Slaughter Cinema, we had no Yeti houses. But this house alone, phenomenal. 10 out of 10, I'll never forget it. And like I said before, give me Slaughter Cinema 3D. We need it. Now let's get into the top 10. I will say this, before getting into the top 10 in general, realistically, if I'm being 100% honest with you guys, any of these houses in my top 25 could have been in this top 10. They're all houses that I truly loved. Like, every single house in my top 25 are houses that I enjoyed. I think I enjoyed almost every single Halloween Horror Nights house, but nonetheless, my top 10 was the hardest thing to put together. Because I love Horror Nights houses, whether they're scary, not scary, goofy, funny, hilarious. I'm here for just a good time at HHN. And we're gonna start things off with how I first ever started off HHN. At my number 10, we have Urban Legends La Llorona. Like I've said countless times, and probably annoyed you at this point, this was my first ever HHN house. This is the house that made me love the event. This is the house that made me fall in love. This is the house that I'll never forget. So, La Llorona's facade was basically just the tomb, walking in, seeing everything, seeing the well outside, seeing the projection. This house was great. From start to finish, you had a collective story of the weeping woman and her kids that she drowned. So you see the kids getting drowned. You see La Llorona's shadow almost everywhere. This house was perfection. And yes, it's a house from Hollywood, which I'm forever grateful for Hollywood for doing this house, because if not, we probably would have never seen it in Orlando. But nonetheless, this house was perfection to me. I loved it so much. It's the fact that it's still in my top 10. 10 years. No, longer than that. I've been doing HHN for longer than 10 years. 13 years? Almost 13 years, 14 years? I'm bad at math. But doing HHN for as long as I have, and this house is still in my top 10, says something about how good this house was. Truly unforgettable, truly iconic, and honestly, I love it so much. I don't even know if I would want to see this back at the event, just because I remember how perfect it was then. I wouldn't want to go down the rabbit hole of it not being as great the second time around, because then I had to be like, oh yeah, it wasn't as good as the original. I've done that with Halloween, I've done that with Insidious, I've done that with multiple things. So, nonetheless, I do think La Llorona was great, but now let's get to my number 9. Here we have a house from 2019, HHN 29, Universal Monsters. Now this was the first time that I have ever seen a Universal Monsters house, and it blew me away. Seeing all of the monsters, and I mean almost all of them, because the Invisible Man wasn't here, but nonetheless, we saw the Wolfman, we saw Hunchback, we saw Gillman, we saw Dracula, we saw his brides, we saw the Mummy, we saw Frankenstein's monster, and we saw the Bride of Frankenstein. Putting all these characters into one haunted house was definitely a wild and bold choice, but I think it's the smartest thing they could have done. Seeing all these monsters together really made me appreciate the Universal Monsters so much. And this honestly led to a few years of us having Universal Monsters every single year. This is the first year that breaks that tradition. So think about that. Every year since 2019, we have seen the monsters, but this is a year we took a break. Nonetheless, I do think that the Universal Monster houses are peak. They are fantastic. All of them have been good in some aspect, but the original, no one ever forgets the original. It was perfect. It had everything. It had the Gillman in it. I'm still dying to see the Gillman at HHN again. And truthfully, that's one thing that's baffled every HHN fan's mind. Why has Gillman not returned? And honestly, we don't know. Hopefully next year, hopefully the year after, hopefully eventually, if they bring back Universal Monsters, I'd love to see the Gillman. But nonetheless, I truly will forever love the original Universal Monsters house, just because of the setting, the scares. The actors were going insane, and there were so many quotable moments like Devour Them and things like that. The house was so good they ended up doing an exact photocopy of it, sending it over to Horrors Unleashed, that it is still being used now on a daily basis for the thing out in Vegas. So think about that. A house from 2019 that was so good, they brought back almost every single aspect of that house and put it into a house in Las Vegas in the year of 2025. Now we move to my number 8, and this is a house from 2014, my early years of HHN, Halloween. The original Halloween. The best Halloween that we've ever had at the event. The facade alone for this made me fall in love. Seeing the Strode residence and then in the window seeing Michael kill his sister, truly an unforgettable sight. It was scary, and then we had Halloween flashed on there as well, like the logo for the movie. Then you walk in and it was like walking through the movie. I truly feel like this house shaped the future of how they did IP houses at the event, kind of giving us photocopies of the exact scenes from the movies displayed out in front of us in this haunted house. It was so amazing seeing all the little details in here, seeing that the TV was playing things that were actually playing on the TV then, seeing that Laurie was in the same positions. This movie house was probably one of the best things that I've ever experienced at Halloween Horror Nights, and knowing that we've seen it multiple times and none of them have been as good as the original blows my mind. because the original was such a perfect capsule of the entire film, while the others were not as good. They were good, but they weren't great. You get what I'm saying? They're not perfect houses, they were good houses. This one was a perfect house and truly has been like the black and white outline for me when it comes down to how I look at IP houses at the event. Now moving to number 7 and sticking with 2014, this is Dollhouse of the Damned, a house that truly has made me wonder why have we never seen anything like this again, but has me optimistic for this year's event since we have Dolls Let's Play Dead. Dollhouse of the Damned was one of those houses that felt like a flash in the pan of excitement. It was amazing. It was truly seeing all the details in this house. The fact that the facade itself was a house made out of doll parts was ridiculous. Going into that house, there were dolls every single corner. So many amazing aspects in here. Truly made me wonder why we haven't seen this again, like I said earlier. And the fact that now we're getting the sequel, not a sequel of sorts, but kind of a continuation in a new type of doll's house, makes me curious to see how they're going to execute this, what they're going to do. Just so many question marks when it comes down to this house in general. But the original was so good. Dollhouse of the Damned was great. People still talk about it. There's a reason that this and Halloween both won House of the Year together back in 2014, which hasn't been a thing since then. There haven't been two houses that have won House of the Year since 2014. Shows you just how good these two houses really were. And now we move to my number 6, and this is a house from HHN 30. This house was not featured at HHN Light. We have HHN icons captured. Now, this house, being able to see every single icon, truly had that same feel that I had with Universal Monsters. Knowing that I can see everyone in this house except for Mariagana, but seeing everyone in this house was something that I was not expecting to do. We saw the storyteller, we saw Jack, we saw Usher, we saw Chance, we saw the director, we saw the caretaker, we saw Fear. It was amazing to know that we walked into Fear's Lantern and we saw these different realms that all these icons have taken over. It was a great thing, and then to put the icing on the cake, taking that same effect that they did with Universal Monsters Legends Collide, they continued it on by having a winner sit on the throne at the end of the house. So every time you walk through, 9 times out of 10, you had a different icon sitting on the throne. It was really cool, and if you timed it out perfectly, you got your favorite icon up there if you knew the set times. But seeing a different icon on the throne every single time was truly an amazing thing, and it's something that I wish they would do more often, having a different finale for a house. They did it with Dueling Dragons, where we had the red path or the blue path. They're doing it this year with Terrifier, where we have a wet and a dry path. It's a nice little touch. It gives the fans something to look forward to at the end of the haunted house, rather than them going to the same house different times. And now we have our top 5. These are the 5 best Halloween Horror Nights houses that I've ever experienced. Trust me, these houses were all great. They were all iconic. And I honestly think that my top 5 won't change for a very, very long time, but we'll have to wait and see. So let's start it off with my number 5. Over here we have a house from 2015. We have Body Collectors, Recollections, or Recollections, depending on how you want to state it. This house is one of those things that gave me that eerie feel from the moment I walked in. It was a stormy night in the house, so it was very snowy, a lot of lightning in the background, but you walk in and it's just silent. The first thing that you would hear is a scream from a woman that's getting yanked by a body collector. And then you would go on and go forward, and there were some iconic scenes from Body Collectors past, like we had the spine rip scene, which is disgusting to see in person. And then all in all, just seeing the origins of Jack and Eddie. They were both in here. They were both in the cell being held up. They were babies. They were just born in Shady Brook Asylum. It was cool to see that, see some lore bits. I'm a sucker for lore when it comes to HHN. So seeing that there was amazing. And knowing that the Body Collectors took over Shady Brook, but we haven't seen them since, makes me wonder, what if we see them again? How will they come back? How will they return? I don't know, but this house from 2015 was truly unforgettable and truly was one of the best houses I've ever gone through. Now let's move to my number 4, and at number 4 we have a house from HHN 28. We have Poltergeist. This house, from the facade alone, looking up and seeing that you're going in through the pool and knowing that you're about to walk into some scary things. You hear the guy yelling that you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones, walking into these little catacombs-esque things and just seeing fog and almost nothing, then to get attacked with scares right away. This was crazy. And I'll be 100% honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the Poltergeist film, but seeing this house was ridiculous. It was so good. It was picture perfect to the movie. seeing all the little aspects, seeing the girl look at the TV, seeing the clown. Let me tell you something about this clown, okay? There was a time that we all went through this house, and I'm there. There's an animatronic. I'm thinking it was an animatronic. It could have just been a puppet, but it was just on the counter. And I'm looking at it, and it turns its head and looks right at me. I'm like, no, don't do that. That's scary. Of course, that's where you go to Horror Nights for, something scary. But nonetheless, this entire house from start to finish was a banger. It was just so good. There was just so much that you could see. And truthfully, I don't want to see it at Horror Nights again, ever. But if it came back, I wouldn't be mad at all. We are now in the top 3. And these 3 houses are truly elite houses. They are some of the best houses that I've ever done at Halloween Horror Nights. Starting off with my number 3, it's our highest ranked IP. We have House of a Thousand Corpses. And if I were to tell you that I don't like this movie at all, like not one bit, it is not a movie I enjoy watching, you probably wouldn't think that I actually like this house. But this is that first IP house that I was like, hey, let's keep running this house. Let's keep doing it. There's so many fun elements in here. It's the fact that it didn't feel like the movie. It felt like its own thing. It felt like its own haunted house. It felt like an original house without it being an original house. And granted, I just try to do that whenever there's an IP that I don't care for. I separate the IP and the haunted house into 2 separate things. Treat the haunted house as something, treat the IP as something else. So this movie, I don't like. I've watched it now after the fact that I've gone to the haunted house, and I'm like, oh hey, that's from the house, that's cool to see, that's from the house, that's cool to see. But enough about the movie, let's get into the house itself. We look at the facade and we see that it's Captain Spaulding's Museum of Horrors. And truthfully, seeing this with my own eyes was really cool because at nighttime, it was like a neon gas station with a low fog effect. It was beautiful. It was fantastic. Walk in, you see Captain Spaulding standing behind the counter, and he's there holding a chicken, telling you some things that I can't say on the internet, which was just fantastic. And every so often, if we walked through, he would ad lib and go off script, which was also fun. But going through this house and seeing the different scenes, the different areas, the end of this house being like a catacombs-esque thing was terrifying. Truly knowing that this house blended together comedy, horror, and set design into one big thing was perfection. It's all the things that I like to see at Horror Nights. And truly, this is something just like Poltergeist that I'd never want to see it at the event again. But if it were to come back, I wouldn't be mad. However, I don't want to see this at Horror Nights again because I know it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same as it was originally, so it's just going to mess with me a little bit. But let's get into that top 2 because these 2 can honestly, either one of them could be my number 1. But of course, this is a list and I have to say things in the order that I wrote them down in. So my number 2 is a house from 2023. We have The Darkest Deal. Now, when I tell you this is a house that I wasn't expecting a lot from either, which is what I'm collecting from a lot of my top 25. It's a lot of houses that I wasn't expecting anything from, but ended up being really good. Maybe I should really stop doing that. Maybe I should just be neutral to every single house and not have any expectations for anything. Maybe I'll enjoy things a lot more. But nonetheless, I had no expectations for The Darkest Deal. I think it was in the middle of the heap for my hype list that year. But when I went through this house and I heard the soothing but yet creepy music played on the outside, the ambient music per se, wow. I was blown away seeing the facade, seeing Bub's Lounge, walking in, seeing the deal go down with the collector, then going and seeing the story go down for Pine Straw Spruce was crazy. Seeing him go down this rabbit hole of basically getting more and more tormented by these demons was next level. And then the house finishing off with seeing him lose his soul to the collector was something beautiful. Now, I will say this about The Darkest Deal. This is something that I want back at Horror Nights. This is something I need back at Horror Nights. Not just continuing the story of Pine Straw. Pine Straw is gone. He left us. But if you go back and give us a sequel to this house that kind of touches on El Brujo, which was another character that was talked about in the podcast, and his guitar was on display in the same place that Pine Straw was playing, I would love to know his story. He's a Cuban musician. I feel like it would be amazing to see the Cuban aspect of this same house. Going through the streets of Cuba, going through and seeing his career, how it went from nothing to something would be fantastic. But nonetheless, The Darkest Deal had everything that you need in a haunted house at HHN. It was scary, it was in your face, it was tight corridor. The only complaint I ever hear from anyone is that it was too short. However, I feel like it was the exact length it needed to be because it was perfect from start to finish. Now my number one, we are looking at a house from 2015. I will be 100% honest. I have loved this house probably since it got announced. This is Jack Presents 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem. This house is truly unforgettable for the fact that you're going through so much history in HHN. It's not even the fact that Jack's attached to this house. You probably could have completely removed that aspect of it, and it would have been an amazing house regardless. Seeing all of the different characters from HHN past, not just the icons, because they were in there too, but seeing Scary Tales, was my first time seeing Scary Tales. Seeing the Nightingales, first time seeing them as well. Seeing the Forsaken, seeing so many different scenes from HHN past all in one location was truly one of the best things that could have ever happened, and I've been craving for a house like this ever since then. Yes, our anniversaries were 30. The next one's 35. 30 we had icons, didn't stand up to 25 years. It was good, but not great. So I'm hoping that next year we have a house that's very similar to this. You don't even have to have Jack present it. Give it to anyone else. Give it to Oddfellow. Give it to anyone. I think that we need a sequel house to this that gives us a look at the last 10 years of HHN houses, kind of diving into maybe The Darkest Deal, diving into La Llorona, diving into Scarecrow, diving into so many things that have happened since Jack Presents 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem, and giving us something that we will never forget. Give this to HHN fans. It's what they want. But nonetheless, that is my top 25. That was also my top 100. I hope you guys enjoyed this series. Horror Nights starts tomorrow. I'm so excited for it. I know you guys are too. A lot of you might be going to Premium Scream, so enjoy that. I won't be there. But with all that being said, if you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below, like I said earlier, your top 10 or your top 3 if you haven't gone through more than 10 houses that you enjoy. Subscribe if you guys already haven't done so. And stay excellent, my dudes.